Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. In this episode, I'm going to talk about some things that can make your orchestra go from good to exceptional when playing Sahara Crossing by Richard Meyer. Whether you're playing this at a contest or even performing for your parents, you want them to have that wow moment, when they realize that they're hearing quality. So what's that wow creating technique? It's tone, right? Most of the time, when we think of tone, we think of the bow, and we covered a lot of that in my last video on phrasing. But the left hand creates a lot of the tone too. And the way that Sahara Crossing is written, there are many holes in the left hand technique that could cause things to go bad with tone. Going from E flat to a fourth finger A and the upper string parts can be a big problem for younger students. And if they have tension in the left hand and they don't push down the strings hard enough, or they can't leverage with their fourth finger, they can have the best bow technique in the world, but they won't have that rich wow tone when playing the A, right? What I like to do are finger building exercises, and in the teaching companion for Sahara Crossing, which has been written to help your students acquire techniques quickly and helps you get the most out of your concert music. The teaching companions, by the way, are available on my website at teachingorchestra.com. And let me show you how we accomplish this. Here, I like to use quarter notes for finger building, because we don't really have a lot of eighth notes in this piece, but you can always speed it up if you want to give them extra challenge. And we simply go from open D to the fourth finger A in the upper strings. Lower strings can play open. Basses can't play open. They're going to have to use first finger, but they can follow along too. Then we go from first finger to fourth finger, and we're going to have to use a tunneling technique, which means to keep the first finger down. And this helps you to really put pressure with that fourth finger while keeping that first finger down. Then second finger, fourth finger, continuing to build. Then third finger, fourth finger. And then we do this in half position, low one, fourth finger, then open to fourth finger to make sure that we're playing in tune. I like to have the low strings be our foundation for pitch, and so cellos will just play open A, basses first finger A, just to ground the orchestra. Now this one right here, E flat to A, is probably going to be the hardest because it's got the biggest stretch. And so we need to make sure that we loosen up the left hand and the thumb especially so that we can transfer the weight onto that fourth finger and not squeeze so much with the thumb. And that's going to take away our angle and our leverage for the fourth finger. Now, if you're not getting the tone that you want, take away the bow and do it pizzicato and see if when you go from the E flat to the A, that the A resonates, that it rings. If it falls flat, if it just sounds like a slap or a thud or something percussive, that probably means that they're not pushing down hard enough. And they're probably not pushing down hard enough because they don't have the right kind of left hand shape. So make sure that their fourth finger is round and that they're able to push down at a 90-degree angle to the fingerboard, which is really going to make it easier for them, especially the younger players with the little fingers and maybe not the best grip strength. It's going to help them get the best leverage to play the A. Sometimes I like to get my students to kind of feel that rocking motion with the thumb, and that helps them to relax. So when they're playing first finger for E flat and then fourth finger to A, can they feel that rocking motion and transfer the weight from the index finger to the pinky? Just go back and forth and feel that weight transfer. If they're tense with their left hands, they won't be able to do this. You can't transfer the weight when you've got this vice grip here, right? Because that pinching force will override gravity. So I like to go back to pull-ups when I'm trying to take the tension out. So if you want to go back to my season 1, I have some teaching exercises on how to teach your students how to do pull-ups, which you can incorporate into your technique routines, right after you tune them. And that's kind of my go-to for alleviating tension for violins and violas with the left hand, and cellos and basses too. There's a demonstration in my vibrato episode from season 1. It's season 1, episode 4. And that's where you can go to find it, all right? So why did I incorporate that technique into my vibrato episode? Well, it's because you can't really vibrate with a lot of tension. And if you do pull-ups to alleviate the tension, it makes it easier to teach vibrato, but it makes it easier to teach Sahara crossing too. So you might want to check it out and use that exercise as a precursor to get into Sahara crossing and get everybody to loosen up. So get your students to loosen up for Sahara crossing, loosen up for vibrato, okay? If they're too dense when they're playing with vibrato and they're squeezing really hard, when they try to vibrate, they're going to actually do some damage to the soft tissue of the neck area, potentially risking epiglottitis if you're really jamming it into your neck. And for your cellos and basses, they might pogo their instruments up and down and maybe even find an oil well in the bottom of your orchestra hall, just spring up oil because their end pins are slamming against the ground like an old oil drill. All right, so let's get rid of that tension. Let's get rid of that death grip. We're not training for the world's strongest man competitions on ESPN 4.5, right? We're trying to cross the Sahara Desert here, so release the grip. Let the whole arm drop down for violins and violas, and low strings take the arm back like you're pulling back a knocked arrow, like in the Hunger Games or something or whatever, and do it several times, and then go back to the exercises. If they tense up again, stop and do some more pull-ups. Like I mentioned in my videos, if your students don't know how to vibrato yet, there's no time like the present. Yeah, but I've got a contest coming up in a month. Right, but you always have something. You've always got something coming up. So now is the time. Don't wait for tomorrow. Walk right up to one of those cliche inspirational posters in your room, or if you see one of those teachers wrapped in the deranged version of that inspirational poster that you put up instead, or if you're one of those teachers that put up one of the comical warped versions of the poster, you can walk up to that instead humorously and get inspired by your poster in your room to teach vibrato. So climb that photoshopped HDR mountain from the poster and go to season 1, episode 4. Or if you don't like that, there are countless other vibrato methods out there. So pick one and get going. You won't regret it. While your violins are tunneling, you probably want to tunnel with your cellos and bass players too, okay? That helps them, and actually not just helps, but forces them to play at 90 degrees, because if their fingers are not at 90 degrees and they're flattening out, the sides of their fingers are going to rub against the A string, creating a false harmonic on the A string, and it's going to sound really bad. So they have to get up on the tips of their fingers in order to do that tunneling. So it's good for your low strings to do this too, and they're not left out. All right, I'm going to go over common problems in my next video. So common problems for Sahara crossing, and I hope to see you then.